So I'm out of my business perusing through YouTube, and then I see this.
Awesome. Good. Columbus Day. We're back. Columbus Day, we're back, Italians. We love the Italians. Okay.
Hello? Excuse me?
What did she say?
Say what?
So when he says we're back Italians, like, what does that actually mean historically? Like, I want to get into that. And I want to preface by saying I am not a history buff whatsoever. You can ask my cousin that. But when I saw the video, I was just like, wait a minute. Don't we have a history of, doesn't like Christopher Columbus have like a negative connotation, which is why they changed it to Indigenous Day? And now it's changed back to Columbus Day. And so I wanted to do a quick video on it, not to be controversial, but just to understand like what happened from us going from Indigenous Day to Christopher Columbus Day. Also, like what Christopher Columbus actually was doing and how America pretty much shunned the Italians back in the day too. So, I just want to get into this. Like I say, I'm not a history buff. So if I missed anything or if I missaid something, shoot me in the comments. I don't care if you correct me. I like to be right more than wrong. So anyway, I looked a little bit over Christopher Columbus because what we were taught in school, right, is, he was on a boat, he discovered the Americas, which would not just be North America, but South America too. And I didn't know that he raised a lot of havoc in South America, just similar to North America, whatever. But it looks like over time he was banned. Like he came over here like 4 times, I believe. Like the first time he discovered it. The reason why the king and the queen allowed him to like go on this voyage is because they were looking for gold, looking for more wealth, and they wanted to spread the religion of Christianity. So he gets on this boat, sure he's gonna find something. So he finds the Americas, right? So he's over there in South America and they're, excited away. So his second voyage, they come back with 17 ships and he left people over here. So when they came back, things weren't looking too good over there. I believe it was in let me see. He came back to Hispaniola, which are the Caribbean islands. And in 1494, I'm reading this, Spain and Portugal signed the Treaty of Tordesillas, dividing the Western Hemisphere between them. Columbus left 2 brothers in charge of the settlements on Hispaniola and returns to Spain in 1496, still convinced that he has reached the Far East. Now we know there's more, so I did find a video on what happened when he came back during this second voyage. This is why it was a treaty, but it was a lot of maltreatment. And so every time he returned, he was banned. Like they heard reports of his maltreatment, his reports of how he was treating everybody in South America, and they wasn't for that. So on his third voyage, he came with even less ships. I want to say it was around 6 ships. Because he kept getting banned in areas. And toward the end, like his fourth voyage, Jamaica and all of them was like, nah, bro, we're not doing that. So I'm wondering, like, what happened with like the banning of the South America versus how North America kind of just got colonized, right? Because it looks like South America was more so fighting. But once again, we're not going to go off my words. We're going to find some videos because I don't want to offend anyone. But here's one video that I found about 1493 during his second voyage. This is courtesy of The Brief. All right, so let's get into this video right quick.
Caribbean with 17 ships and over 1,000 men. But this time, things went wrong. The fort at La Navidad had been destroyed. The men left behind were dead, likely after clashing with local people.
So they came over there, just the same thing that happened here, trying to colonize, trying to change everything. Instead of working with the South Americans and Hispaniolas, they seemed like they were trying to change it, and the natives weren't on it.
Peace had turned to violence. Columbus ordered new settlements to be built. He forced the Taino people to work, often harshly. Tensions rose.
So and I feel like because of things like this, because I don't want to get a copyright strike, I think because of things like this is why like they were like, no, you can't You can't just come over here and just take over. And I feel like that was the main thing that he was on or whatever. So like I said, the more voyages that he had, according to what I was reading, the less ships, he was able to have. Like for his third voyage, like I said, only 6 ships only 6 ships were allowed, and he stops at Trinidad. Later explores some of northern South America. However, like him and his brothers antagonized the indigenous chiefs and the Spanish settlers. An allegation of poor administration led to Columbus and his brothers being returned to Spain in chains. So it's like, no, y'all not finna come over here and do this. And so it seemed like, I guess the whole point of changing his name is because although Christopher did have like maybe his intentions were to be good, to find the gold and to spread the religion. However, when he discovered these places, instead of like coming to an understanding, it was more of a, we're gonna take this over, so but let's get into North America and why we don't have a day named after him. So I found another video to kind of streamline the background of Christopher Columbus, courtesy to that Shakespeare life. She explained it in layman terms and how he even ended up in the Americas. But before we get into that, I do have to play our sponsor, SNHU. I'll be right back. Hey y'all, before we jump in, I want to give a huge shout out to today's sponsor, Southern New Hampshire University, or SNHU. So there was a point in my journey where I felt completely stuck. I had ideas, talent, drive, but I wasn't in the space that let me grow. And honestly, I thought maybe I had picked the wrong path a long time ago. Like my degree wasn't even connected to who I had become. That's why I love what SNHU is doing. They offer fully online degree programs that help you prepare for new opportunities in fast-growing industries, whether it's business, marketing, psychology, or HR, like yours truly. Now, SNHU is one of the largest accredited online universities in the United States, and their tuition is some of the lowest in the country. Plus, their faculty has real-world experience, so you're learning from people who actually get it, right? If you're feeling stuck or like your current career doesn't reflect your potential, this could be your chance to shift. You deserve a degree that reflects who you are now, not who you were when you started. Make sure that you go to snhu.edu/BYOK, or you can click the link down in the comments. And as always, don't forget to be your own kind and let SNHU help you get there. Bye. I love that. Like, I'm not the one that said that. So it's never too late to resurrect your career, even if you want to be a little history buff. Because I'm like, maybe I missed some stuff when I was supposed to be paying attention to history, especially this. Like, I know he came in, we had Thanksgiving. That's Christopher Columbus. That is what I learned as a kid. Like, I didn't realize like the terribleness or the turmoil that was caused when he visited the Americas. I just like, the way they teach you in school is the Pilgrims and the Native Americans. They were one, they shared ideas, they ate corn, the end, and that's all we learned. Then you get older and you start reading like history and you're just kind of like, you know what I'm saying? And even I'm thinking of Pocahontas, even with Disney, like when Pocahontas came out, it's like, John Smith, Pocahontas, and then you read the real story, like she was like a kid and he was an adult and so this is the reason why I believe it turned into Indigenous Day. So let me quit talking and let's get into the Shakespeare life. She explained it. I made it a little bit faster for copyright purposes. So if you don't understand her, I will have her link in the bottom so you can check this out. But I found this very interesting and informative, and she broke this down in great terms, so in layman terms. So here we go.
Try and go across the Atlantic to get to the Indies. And he was going to map out a safer route for other explorers that would come after him in the process. Now, Ferdinand and Isabella thought that this was a really good idea, so they financed his journey. Now, if you're like me at this point, you're probably wondering, how in the world did he even think this was possible? You see, here's a map of the world from 1508. This map is called...
Okay, so this is the map
called the Lennox globe, and it was technically drawn in 1508. That's when they date this map too, but it's based on a globe by Martin Behaim. I think I'm saying that right. Behaim. Anyway, he made it in 1492. And by based on, I mean that even though the Lennox map was drawn later, all the place locations are the same as they would have been for maps in 1492. So as you take a look at this map, tell me something. Do you see anything glaring? That's right. The entire continent of North America and most of Central America, where Columbus landed, is literally missing from this map. That's one reason the continent of North America is referred to as the New World, because prior to explorers like Columbus, Europeans had no knowledge of these locations at all.
Right, and Europeans didn't have any knowledge of this, but I am aware that Africans, when they were exploring, they discovered the Americas and they just left it alone. They left it as that. So I'm wondering when Behind was creating this map, why he wasn't aware of that if the Africans have been there before. Let me see if I can find something about that right quick, because I don't want to make it seem like I'm making something up here. Okay, so here we go. Courtesy of the Republic. In 2021, President Joe Biden became the first U.S. president to officially commemorate Indigenous People Day. That's what it's called. I call it Indigenous Day. Indigenous Peoples Day. So let's go down. Yet the challenges to often heroic narrative of Christopher Columbus's so-called exploration have not come through the Amerindigenous or even Hispanic community. Several African scholars, particularly in the Atlantic, have coalesced around the hypotheses that Africans were the first to discover the Americas, beginning with ancient Nubia. However, an even more circulated theory is that the Africans arrived in the Americas during the medieval period at the height of the Mali Empire. So in African Dominion, a new history of empire in early and medieval West Africa, that's a long name, historian Michael A. Gomez relays the account of the 14th century Malian king Mansa Musa, where he came to power after his predecessor, Mansa Muhammad. Okay. Failed to return from an oceanic voyage off the west coast of Africa. Muhammad's voyage took place after an initial dispatch was more or less unsuccessful. Let me put on my glasses so I can actually see. Oh, they're dirty. Okay, anyway. The account was recorded by medieval Arab historian and geographer. I can't pronounce these names, y'all. Although Mansa Musa would describe the voyage to the governor of Old Cairo. While on his famous voyage, I'm assuming, the implications of such an account, Gomez argues, at the very least points to the expansive mindset of Mansa Musa, who perhaps desired to transfigure his relationship to the wider world. Gomez argues that the very imagining of the voyage is far more critical to the question of Mansa's state of mind than its variability. Oh my God, indicating Gomez's ambivalence about the probability of the journey. He writes, the absence of supporting evidence certainly gives pause, but on its own fails to generate skepticism sufficient to completely dismiss the possibility as corroboration for one element of the story derived from oceanographic. Okay, so basically he can't prove this. So this is a rumor that, I guess, a rumor without regard, because no one can actually prove that the Africans were, but I heard that they did, and it kind of would make sense because it's not on the map. If we go to the map, like, why wasn't the Americas on what's his name? Behind. It sounds like Behind, don't it? On Behind's map before Columbus. And just real quick, Google is saying the Americas weren't on European map before Columbus because the maps reflected the knowledge of the time, which did not include the existence of these continents. European maps were based on ancient calculations and trade routes, and Columbus was searching for a new western sea route to Asia, not a new continent. So this is what the narrator is telling us. But I'm wondering, let me see. So even for the European and old world traditions, their knowledge was limited to Africa, Asia, and Europe. So as far as when they're saying that he discovered America, I hate to say this, but just because there were people cohabitating there, which we always get into that debate, like what's discover? Let's define discover before, and then we're going to get into other people's words because I feel like I'm about to say something. So discover is to find something unexpectedly in the course of a search. So if we go by the definition of discover, this America's South and North were not on the map. So this was, even though people were living there and they knew it existed, and even maybe the South Americans even knew that North America existed, and vice versa. The rest of the world didn't know anything about us, which is why we're considered new. We've been around. We've been here for a very long time, as long as everyone else. However, no one knew about us. No one knew about the South Americans. No one knew about the North Americans. And so when he came around, he pretty much literally put us on the map. However, I think the issue comes in is what he did when he did put us on the map. Like, that's where the issues came in. So we could get back into what she's going to say. I just want to see what she's going to say a little bit further, and then we'll move on from this and get into the controversy from someone else's words as to why the decision was made to eliminate, not eliminate, but replace Columbus Day with Indigenous People Day. So let's see what else she got to say, girl. Let's see.
They simply didn't know they were there. Now, as my kids pointed out, not knowing something is there is different from it not actually being there. So it is worth pointing out that there were people in the world who knew about it. The people who lived here knew about it. And sections of North America were actually known about by the Vikings, but those areas were really good for fishing. And by and large, the Vikings kept their knowledge under wraps. So without the advent of things like a global communication.
So the Vikings knew we were here, but they were like, that's for us. We're trying to get our fish. We're not on that. We're not trying. It was a well-kept secret because, let's be honest, it's a lot of resources here in the Americas, so if someone else found it, they wanted to keep it on a hush hush. But see, that wasn't, when we learned earlier, that wasn't Columbus's intention. Their intention was to find gold, to colonize, basically,
system. There wasn't a way for the people who lived here to let people in other parts of the world know that they lived here when the two sides didn't know about each other. So the North Americans weren't aware of the Europeans, and the Europeans were not aware of the people who lived here in North America until explorers arrived here and created that connection. So when you look at this map, it looks possible to set sail from Europe and go across the Atlantic. And if you're operating off of a round globe model, you could set out, go across the Atlantic, and your expectation, according to the professional maps of the day, is that you're going to land in the Indies by doing that. So that's why he called the people he encountered Indians. He thought they were natives of the Indies.
Oh, didn't know that. And that's why the Indians is like, don't call us that. We're Native Americans. We're native to this land. This is our America. You know what I'm saying? So, I did not know that. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Say what? All right. So okay. So we realize why he's here. We realize why it's a discovering. But let's get into the controversy of that. The controversy of being called Indians when that's not what Native Americans were actually called. So let's get into the history in that. Okay, courtesy of Recycle Stardust, she's going to explain this whole the Indian debate, Indian Native American debate.
Indians are from India. This all goes back to the lost explorer at sea the natives of America found. He was a little bit disoriented. He thought in already occupied territory, he thought to himself, I've discovered a new world. That's called delusions of grandeur, baby. It wasn't a new world. We were here. It wasn't new. So, crazy eye, Columbus, let him peer into your soul for a second. Called the native of America, which, by the way, he landed in the islands, not even in the mainland United States. He called them
Right, what we said earlier, he was going back and forth to South America, not so much North America.
Indians, because he thought he was in the Indies. All of this, the Indies. He thought he was in the Indies. Thought he had found a quicker, easier trade route to the Indies, even though he went this way. So he was like, oh, this must be Indian. Sure, he looked at all of us just like this. And of course, he was wrong, because what he was encountering were the native or indigenous people, which many native people call Turtle Island. But all of them, we're not a monolith, but many of us do call North America, which includes Greenland, Canada, the United States, Mexico, Central America, the island. We called this Turtle Island. Now, because he had these crazy eyes, I think people were scared of him. He did intimidate his own people so badly that they arrested him for crimes against humanity and sent him off back to Spain. Spain was greedy and they sent him right there.
Yeah, that happened in the third voyage. They sent them back because what you're not going to do is come over here and cause havoc. So that was the third voyage where he got arrested and they sent them back.
Because money. But that name stuck among the new settlers and colonizers and people off the boat. But that was never our name. That was something that was given to us that we never agreed on. I'm not Indian from India, not East Indian, not South Indian. I am a Native American. I'm a First Nations individual, an indigenous person to the America. A Turtle Islander, Mohawk from the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. So many ways to put it. Indian isn't one of them.
Gotcha. So no, I never understood or never knew where that Indian came from. But that makes sense because he thought he was in the Indies because we weren't on the map. So he found us and he raised havoc. And so he wasn't even like I said, he wasn't welcomed, but he kept coming back and it kept getting worse and it kept getting worse and it kept getting worse. And he came over here 4 times. And I think on his 4th time he died after that. So he could no longer according to the videos, terrorize the people. So when our president is saying, he is from Italy, which that does make him Italian. So we're down for the Italians. I don't think Columbus Day name was changed because we had anything against Italians, so to speak. I think, well, from what I'm gathering is the treatment is why and what it stood for, what he stood for. Him as an individual, as a person, not a race, just a person. When he came over here and he raised havoc, and didn't get to know anyone. He just pretty much called everyone Indians and once again tried to colonize, came over here trying to run stuff, and everybody was like, no, you're not going to do that. So let's before we get into the time in 2021 where Columbus Day name was actually changed, let's get to a commercial and I'll be right back. Studies show that women are far less likely than men to self-advocate or ask for support, even when we've earned it, right? One study found that nearly 3 out of 4 women fear being judged when they speak up for themselves or ask for help. And honestly, I felt that too. For a long time, I've hesitated to ask, to promote my work, to say, hey, support this. But hesitation, it doesn't really serve us, right? Like closed mouths don't get fed, right? So today I'm practicing what I preach. I'm choosing to self-advocate and I'm asking for your support to keep BYOK going strong. Here's how you can help. Number 1, share. Sharing is caring. If I evoked any type of emotion, I made you laugh, made you smile, made you think, share that content, right? Shop the BYOK shop. I am always adding products on there, and every purchase helped me keep this platform alive, the website, the podcast, this video you're watching, right? Like it just helps. It helps the shop. So shop it, and it's little gifts on there, very encouraging little gifts. Right now we have the little beaded pen, so make sure you check it out. Donate directly. Like you can show love through Cash App, which the handle is at $BYOK24 and Venmo, Be Your Own Kind 24. Every little bit helps, right? And number 4, support our amazing sponsors and partners. They believe in what BYOK stand for, and I believe in what they stand for. All of the links, discount codes, and ways to support are listed in the show notes below. And don't forget to subscribe too. How did I forget about that? And don't forget, supporting BYOK is not just about me. It's about investing in a woman-led platform built on honesty, creativity, and self-love. This is me choosing to self-advocate. And I hope it reminds you that your voice deserves to be heard too, and you deserve support too. So thank you for being a part of this journey, and thank you for choosing BYOK. Hi. I say women don't ask for help. Like we are the most independent being where we're just like, I can do it myself. I can do it myself. And I think that comes from, you know what? That's a whole nother video, right? So back to Christopher Columbus, right? So anyway, let's get back to Christopher Columbus right quick. So we were wondering, like, well, I was wondering, like, when did it come about where Columbus Day was replaced by Indigenous People Day? So this actually started in 1990, as you see this picture over here, where the word murderer is spray painted on the side of the Christopher Columbus statue. And in 1990, South Dakota, currently the state with the third largest population of Native Americans, became the first state to officially recognize Native Americans Day, commonly referred to as Indigenous People Day in other parts of the country. So they already was like, nope. And then more than a dozen states and the District of Columbia now recognize Indigenous People Day. And those were all the states during the time. Not my state. My state's not in here. It was Alabama, Alaska, Hawaii, Idaho, Iowa, Louisiana, Maine, Michigan, Minnesota, New Mexico, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Oregon, South Dakota, Vermont, Virginia, and Wisconsin. I know Oregon. I'm not shocked by that. Now, how Indigenous Peoples Day changed things. Indigenous People Day offers an opportunity for educators to rethink how they teach what some have characterized as a sanitized story of the arrival of Columbus, which we already know. There's nothing sanitized about it. There's nothing humane about it. Research has shown that many schools do not accurately represent Indigenous people when they teach history. I think this is true not only on Indigenous Peoples Day, but throughout the school year. Researchers have found that K through 12 schools tend to teach about Native Americans as if they only existed in the past. That is true. That is true. I'm not gonna hold you. When we had, it was called what was it called? I can't even think of it. It was something studies. Was it community studies? I don't know. I can't remember now. But when we had, it was basically history. When we had history, it basically was that, like, Europeans came over here, we were colonized, and now we were considered a part of them. You know what I'm saying? So they didn't even delve into. And then when you get older in high school, you learn about the basically like genocide of the people, like how they just flat out like killed them, you know, from, it was from smallpox. I believe the food was rationed, so they were starving them out. um just taking all the resources, and then like alcoholism became prevalent, all of these things to kind of just wipe out a whole nation. Those are things that we're not taught in school at all. It's just like, oh, they were here and we became one in the end, and that's not what happened. And to honor those people who suffered from being treated horribly, I do think it made nothing but great sense to erase his name, because what is he being honored for? Okay, he put us on, he put America's on the map, but what did he do when he got here? Like, what do we celebrate him for? Why don't we celebrate the natives that were actually here? So anyway, I agree with that. So has there been any pushback? Yes, the shift from Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day have met resistance from communities across the country. In 2021, parents in Parsippany, New Jersey protested the local schools board decision to celebrate Indigenous People Day in place of Columbus Day. Among other things, they cited lack of community input, failure to honor the legacy of Italian immigrants, and the need for a more balanced picture of Columbus. In response, the school board removed the names of all holidays from its calendars. Now the holidays are just referred to as days off. So the school was like, I'm not going to deal with this. We're just going to put days off across the entire. What? Are you telling me that's what they did?
Hell no.
So instead of us addressing the actual history, it's just like, forget it. We're just going to call it days off. And like I said, I don't think this is a dig to Italian immigrants. I don't. It's just a dig to that one person. So he did put us on the map. We can give him credit for, I mean, putting us on the map, because nobody knew about us and we didn't know about them. So now, you know, we're introduced to the rest of the world and the world is introduced to us. That is what he did. But once again, the actions following that, who wants to honor that? Who wants to commemorate that? You know what I'm saying? Like who wants to do that? So they did recognize, they did offer or some resources or recommend any resources that you would want to teach your children if you want them to know more about Christopher Columbus, and what actually happened, which is Lies My Teacher Told Me About Christopher Columbus by sociologist and educator James Loewen. And an Indigenous People History of the United States of Young People by historian Roxanne Dubar Ortiz. This I'm actually want to get into this because I am actually part Native American. I can't pronounce the name, but I am part part Native American, so it would be good to read more about that, or maybe we can even, if you're watching this and you are Native American and you want to be on the show, just a quick spotlight and talk more about this. I would love for you to be a part of the show and actually give me a little bit of give us some education on it, because I don't ever want to misspeak or whatever. And so yeah, so this is why it was Indigenous Peoples Day. So it seems like the controversy was it was taken away from Italian immigrants, but Italians as well as every other race has brought a lot. Like, United States is built off of cultures, different cultures, and like I said, I don't think we're discrediting that culture because of that. But let's get into America and the maltreatment of Italians. Okay. So courtesy to Italian Roots and Genealogy. Once again, all of these things are going to be all of these links to what is being used in this video is going to be in the notes if you want to get better insight on this. But here's a 32-second video that's talking about how America exploited the Italian immigrants. So if we're going to honor cultures, because that's what this video is about, we can honor our Italian immigrants in so many other ways versus commemorating this one person who did a lot of horrible things, but here is how America has treated them, and have we offered an apology to them? But let's not get there, because like I said, I don't want to make this a race thing, because it's be your own kind and we love everybody here. All right, so here we go. This is courtesy of Italian Roots and Genealogy.
Arrival in the United States, many Italian immigrants found work through a padrone or boss. These labor brokers, often immigrants themselves, offered crucial opportunities for employment. But this help came at a steep price. The padrone controlled wages, housing, and food, often trapping workers in a cycle of debt through excessive fees for tools, transportation, and lodging. The padrone system was exploitative, but for hundreds of thousands of immigrants, it was the only way they could get jobs.
Yeah, and I feel like that's no different than what's happening now, actually, with it's everyone now. But this is what happened to a lot of immigrants that came over to the Americas. Like they weren't treated fairly. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like we can commemorate them by just making it inclusive. Like, oh, we love our Italian Americans. Let's just love our Italian Americans. And we can do that without re-implementing like this person, you know what I'm saying, who was basically running havoc in the Americas. But other quick things for the Italian Americans were, or immigrants in this sense, was racial prejudice. There was a time they were not considered white Italians. They faced hostility due to their language, their customs, and they were Catholics. They weren't Christian. So that was already a no-no back in the day, because if you weren't Christian, you just weren't human, right? They were often stereotyped as criminals, which they still are. Like, I too am one for a mob movie now, baby, but they're more than the mob, you know what I'm saying? So they still kind of have that negative connotation against them, anarchists, and their threats to American society. This is what it used to be. Political cartoons often portrayed them as like rat-like invaders carrying diseases and criminality. But we also need to give whether they were mob or not, like Las Vegas basically was funded by them taking the mob's money and recreating it. Like, Italians pretty much ran the old old Vegas. Like that's a whole nother thing, right? And then that money, whatever they accrue from that, is the Las Vegas that we have now. So I don't know if that's ever talked about, but Italians have made great contributions to the Americas, and it's more than what they're being stereotyped as in media. You know what I'm saying? Economic exploitation. Many Italians were regulated to low-paying jobs. This is the same as the video we just watched. Dangerous jobs in construction and mining. They were resented for driving down wages, which fueled anti-Italian sentiment among the working class groups. Another one was mob violence and lynchings. Anti-Italian sentiment turned violent, leading to lynchings. The most notorious case was an 1891 mass lynching in New Orleans, where a mob murdered 11 Italian men who had been acquitted of killing a police chief. They didn't even do it. They were found now guilty, and they still were killed. The indifference shown towards this violence included comments from Theodore Roosevelt, reflected the widespread of prejudice at the time. Then there's the World War II persecution. When Italy allied with Nazi Germany, anti-Italian paranoia peaked in the U.S., and over 600,000 Italian immigrants were designated as enemy aliens and subjected to curfews, movement restrictions, and job losses. So thousands were forced to relocate, and hundreds were detained in internment camps. Yes, I'm reading this. And the military, even as nearly as 1.5 million Italian Americans served in the U.S. Even though this happened, we had 1.5 million Italians that served in the U.S. military, even though the civilians they were given a curfew and they were losing their jobs, and we were considering them enemies, but they weren't enemy enough to join our military. And so these are the things that we don't talk about. These are the things that we want to, like skip around. And I'm like, who is in charge of the curriculum in school when it comes to history? Like, I know you don't want to scare kids with all of this crazy stuff, but it has to be like, I feel like, okay, let kindergarten history be cute. But when you start reaching like high school, I feel like some type of truth, like age appropriate truth, can be told in history, where kids are just not walking around like la 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 la, and really the only education that most kids get into is if they're watching videos like this, or if they're watching videos that we're watching, just to like spark interest in this. Like, wait a minute, let me look into this and let me look into that. Like, I don't want to make this an African American thing, but I'm Black, so even growing up with history as me being a Black American, our story starts with slavery, and that's not even where Black American history starts. Like, we were kings, we were queens. Like the practices and some of the things that the European, like the influence came from Africa. European influence came from Africa. But when we're introduced in history, we're introduced as slaves. Same with the Native Americans. They're introduced as the Indians that just happened to be there in a land that was here for years, that was discovered. It was discovered on a map, but it existed off the map. It was an actual existence of the map. Why don't we learn like about them? Like, why don't we learn about these different cultures instead of it looking like a storybook that we're just supporting characters, in history? And I feel like it does need to be some more, I don't know, some type of change in the curriculum, in the school curriculum, because it's not reality. It's not reality. And now we're in the sense of we're just going to bury everything like it doesn't happen. And that doesn't help anything, because it happened and it's there. And no matter how many times you try to clear off social media, anytime you're trying to just blackwash or whitewash, whatever it's called, history, it's still there. Some of these people are still living. Some of these people are still writing about it. And we have historians, so I'm going on a whole tangent. But yes, like, the Italians have received great maltreatment. So there's, even to this day, about the Italian culture, which is beautiful and delicious. You know what I'm saying? We eat their food. We're influenced by their food. Give me some pasta. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though they're even though I have to go to Italy because it's super fresh, you know. But I'm saying, like, we're influenced by these different cultures. And I feel like and I'm finna get off, but I feel like the connotation is, you know, Christopher Columbus was eliminating Italian. It wasn't eliminating Italian immigrants and Italian history, because there's a history beyond Christopher Columbus for Italians. We can research Italy. We can research what happened in Italy. We can research the culture. We can research the food. I'm learning Italian on Duolingo. So, you know, things of that sort. So, you know, I'll say all this to say is I don't really see the point of changing it back to Columbus Day, not for the reason that's being stated. You know, I mean, if you just want to keep up with tradition because it looks like that's what's happening, we're going back to old traditions or whatever. I'm not political. I'm not going to get into any of that, but I just don't understand why it couldn't be Indigenous People Day. Why couldn't it? You know what I'm saying? This was their land. This was their land. You know, point blank. Like, it's nothing more to say to that. So, I mean, what do you think about this? Like, do you think that who cares, or do you think that it's very important, you know, to make sure that history is honest and history is true? That's where I'm at with it. You know, you can't erase the truth. No matter how bad you try, you can't erase the truth. And so I love those truth seekers out there that keep us, you know, especially me, who don't, like I say, don't really delve into history much, to keep me educated and informed, you know. So thank you for your time, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you have any comments, I mean, not any comments, if you have any topics that you would like me to discuss in this Say What segment, come on down, let me know. And I promise to research a little bit more. This was just an impromptu video because I was just like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Let's not even go back there. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe if you're on here. Don't forget to leave comments, engage. I'll engage back. Also, don't forget my sponsors and my partners down below. And thank you for your time, you know, because you could be anywhere you want, but you decided to be here with me. And I love that for me. And I love that for you. And until next time, don't forget to be your own kind and own your difference. Bye.